So, our moment of positivity is over and it's time to get back to business. The harsh, brutal reality of things. And I'm going to go over this in order and do my best to explain why this isn't a surprise to anyone, or at least it shouldn't have been. Now, I want to do things just a little bit different than how I would normally do things, and by that I mean we're going to start by talking purely business. Just straight up from the business standpoint, get your feelings, your emotions, your personal situations, all of that out of here. This is now a humanization-free zone. We are cold, hard, uncaring machines of the capitalist environment. Alright? Temper yourself for that. It's going to be important. After we're done with that, though, we are going to go over this from a more consumer side. We're going to bring the humanization back, remove all of the business, and talk about this the way that most other people are probably going to talk about it. What are we talking about, though? Well, today we're talking about Bungie, again, that has announced mass layoffs less than 2 months after Destiny 2, the Final Shape's launch. Okay, so Bungie announces mass layoffs less than 2 months after Destiny 2, the Final Shape's launch. They are confirming to cut 17% of its workforce, or around 220 people. Now, just last year, toward the end of last year, they had another round of layoffs that affected more than 100 people. So between the end of last year and this year, that is 320 people, give or take a few, that we can't confirm. Now, that's really bad. That's a lot of people who are losing their jobs. Honestly, again, remember what I said, that we should expect more layoffs in the game industry, and that there were going to be a lot of unfortunate casualties. A lot of people who may have been doing a good job are caught up in this. I'm sorry, I'm already breaking the rule. Okay, so they're laying off 17% of the workforce. That's 220 people. But what are they going to do? Well, Parsons said Bungie is working with PlayStation to spin out of its incubation projects to form a new studio within PlayStation to continue work on this game. It's an action game set in a brand new science fantasy universe. So basically, Bungie's being absorbed officially this time into Sony. They were allowed to keep their autonomy while working on the Final Shape expansion pack, but, well, that's over. They're going to be an internal developer for Sony pretty soon. Bungie CEO seemingly spent over $2.3 million on classic cars after the Sony acquisition. This was published yesterday. Let's see, what did he buy? Can we see? He got a Chevrolet Corvette, got a Porsche, Ford Bronco, Ford Ranger, Morris Mini, and a Honda CT70 motorcycle. Nice. Not bad. That's pretty nice. Nice. A lot of people are going to be angry about this. And honestly, I probably would have been too. But let's talk about what's happening here. Now, Bungie's claiming that this is due to operating costs, that they have to make these massive layoffs. There's a little bit of truth to that and a little bit of lie to that. So, to be clear, the Final Shape expansion pack wasn't a complete and total failure. Even though people said that they were going to boycott it, or, they had already cut off a huge they had already cut off a huge portion of Bungie's talent, so the expansion couldn't possibly be good. Well, let's be real, they suckered us. And when I say us, I mean I was included too. I did buy the Final Shape expansion pack, and I didn't even play it. As of yet, anyway. So if the expansion pack didn't fail, then why are they getting rid of people? Why is the CEO buying cars? Is the company struggling or not? Well, speaking from a business perspective, let's hit it. And this is going to go into Microsoft and how they treated Tango with Hi-Fi Rush. All right? You have a studio, and that studio is employing a team of developers. Doesn't really matter what size, there's a group of people. Those people need to be paid regularly. Monthly expenses is what they are. So when they produce a product, because that's how it works, they make products, there's no contract. When that product goes out and it's successful, you would think that it's a reason to celebrate. Hey, good news, everybody. Our game is doing numbers and we're not in the red this time. Well, no. Because the game is out now, the company, the studio and the publisher are earning money, but they still have to pay those monthly expenses for people on the team. Now, those developers might be working on patches, balancing, changes, but those things don't earn money. Expansion packs do earn money in DLC, microtransactions, that sort of thing, but in the case of Hi-Fi Rush they don't earn enough money. Even in Destiny's cases, let's say that they do have a line of microtransactions lined up, but how much is that really going to earn? Is that really going to offset the employment costs of an entire team of developers? I don't think so. So you're a rich CEO, right? You're in charge, you're the boss. You've released a product and it didn't fail. That's going to be okay as far as the investors are concerned, but you can make it a little bit better. Oh yeah, absolutely. How do you do that? Okay, you fire everyone. You close down the studio. You have no idea what they were going to work on next anyway, whether or not it was going to be as successful or not. They're a monthly expense right now. You've already earned the money. So what happens is you close down the studio and you say, well, this is due to some very tough business expenses and, the economics just don't work. And unfortunately, we have to make some tough choices. So you put out a product that's earned you some money, and then you cut away the redundant expenses that are taking away from that money right before your quarterly report, and guess what? All of a sudden, that little bit of money that you earned looks like a lot more money that you've saved. That's what happened to Hi-Fi Rush. That's what's happening with Bungie. Now, obviously, Bungie isn't firing everyone, and that's because the plan with Bungie is to cut down the size of people working on that game to put it in the same state that Final Fantasy XI is in. Now, if you aren't familiar, Final Fantasy XI is a game it's an MMO, so it's a live service game, and it doesn't receive content anymore, but there are just enough people working on that game to keep it, keep the servers up, so people can still pay to play the game. They're not earning a lot, but they're definitely earning a whole lot more than what they're spending on the game, which is basically nothing. Now, in Bungie's case, Bungie is loaded with microtransactions and content packs and all sorts of stuff that you can potentially have people spend their money on. So by cutting down on the people who are making new content for the game and basically plugging it into life support, this live service game can continue to rake in money, but not suck away any money in development costs. So as the remainder of Bungie gets shifted to the internal dev studio of Sony, that's what you can expect to have happen. Now, we've talked about the business side of things. Is it right for this to happen? Of course not. Of course it isn't. These development studios and these publishers knew years ago that they were expanding way faster than what they would be able to maintain over a long period of time. Even if they weren't pumping out trash and making everybody angry, there's no way that they could continue to pay that many people in perpetuity. Here we have Lena Rupert's tweet. She was community manager for Bungie. I remember the Friday before the first layoffs. Me and another CM were in the lobby, and I was literally talking about how I didn't have enough money for groceries, and that employee services were an angel for helping me have food, since I was told to drop all of my side jobs. When Chu got laid off, Pete walked right up to us and bragged about a few new expensive cars he bought, that we should come to his house and see them. After hearing how we weren't making enough money, we did not make Dylan's money. Dylan was the senior, and we were not allowed to go for any senior roles without our department. He also made shit money when he first started. The pay was atrocious if you were in soft skills. I remember looking right at them and being like, was that weird? Why couldn't he look us in the eye? And just having a bad feeling. I was told I was being too paranoid, but it didn't sit right. Cue Monday morning, getting an HR invite at 6 a.m. Even though I said specifically that I wouldn't never talk to HR without a manager present due to horrible interactions with the head of HR. She's gone, thankfully. When I couldn't get a response on what the meeting was, I knew. She was a part of the people who were laid off. And this is really, really unfortunate, because it sounds like there were a whole lot of people in the company that knew ahead of time that this was going to happen, and they just did not give anyone any chance to prepare or get their affairs in order. And that's really, really terrible. In several videos, I said that I was happy that this was happening, that in order for the video game industry to move forward, this needed to happen. But I did specify specifically that there were going to be a lot of unfortunate people who got caught up in it. And there's something in here that I really want to highlight, because we can point fingers and say, oh, it's the leadership at Bungie, it's the CEOs, it's Sony, it's this guy who bought cars. We could go in circles for hours. But there is a point where we have to take a little bit of the blame ourselves. We have to do some self-reflection. I was told to drop all of my side jobs. What exactly do you mean by that? I'm hoping that she means that she had other work within the company to do, and she was told to let those go. But if she had other money-earning opportunities with different companies or businesses, or just, 1 to 2 jobs, maybe 3 jobs, I don't know her situation from just a single tweet. But any situation where somebody's telling you to do less work should be a red flag. Now, when I say do less work, I don't mean that you're overworking yourself and that you should, do less work to not burn yourself out or stress yourself out. That's not what I'm talking about. If somebody's telling you that you need to do less work, take less jobs, if they say, for example, you should quit your second job, that's a red flag. If they're not looking out for your physical or mental health, then they wouldn't tell you to do something like that. And the fact that they did means that you should have immediately had a bunch of questions as to why. Now, regardless of what position you had in Bungie, you knew what public perception about the company was, regardless of how many people were playing the game at the time. People have been down on Bungie for a long time. The now famous video, Destiny 2 has become microtransaction hell, has gained 1.6 million views and came out over a year ago. Now that doesn't seem like too long, but the content of the video and people's opinions on the game and the company have been well known and established many years prior to this point. I'll play just a little bit of it.
Return of Test to the Tower. Silver is a new currency coming to Destiny that is bought with real money. This is the introduction of microtransactions into Destiny, but I've never had a problem with cosmetic microtransactions. A lot of people will now mention the slippery slope argument. Yes, Dado, we start with shaders, emblems, emotes, but who is to say that they won't introduce materials, armor, or weapons in the future? If we see legendary guns for sale, if we see legendary marks for sale, I'm gonna be mad. If we see something like 100 motes of light for $5, I'm gonna be mad. I don't want to see power sold, I don't want to see shortcuts to power sold, nothing. I don't want to see weapon parts, ammo synths, nothing. If Bungie does cross that line, you have my rage.
That was in 2015.
Guys, I hate to say it, but now may be the time to start raging. Now I'm gonna preface this by saying, no, this is not a joke video. When it comes to greedy corporate monetization practices, to us...
Now, these are the thoughts and opinions expressed by some of Destiny 2's most dedicated players. These aren't people like me at all. These are people who continue to play the game. They came back for regular content updates. They bought a lot of those microtransactions. They paid for dungeon keys and season passes. They bought your anniversary collection, whereas I did not. Now, if your most dedicated players, the hardest core fans of your game, were this disgruntled back then, the writing was on the walls. Now, you can say that your situation, you couldn't just quit your job, it's hard to find another thing in the same field, whatever you want, but people have been concerned about the health of Destiny 2 and Bungie overall since 2015 and maybe even beyond. It's 2024. Did you really think that from that point to now, you would be able to inflict some sort of major change to course correct an entire corporation? And even if you thought that you could, did you really continue to think that after the mega corporation Sony bought you guys out? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you had plenty of time to get out, but you chose to stay for whatever reason. I don't know what it is. Now, I do feel bad for you. Genuinely, I do. But I don't feel that bad for you. Remember, this is the best time to be a gamer. Right? So if this is the best time to be a gamer, then surely it's got to be the best time to be a game developer. Right? This goes back to why I'm so hard about games when it comes to how we buy them, how we interact with them, what we spend our money on. Because we've given the dirtbags in charge of Bungie, we've given this CEO here, this Pete Parsons guy, this guy doesn't want to save Bungie. He doesn't need to save Bungie. All of this is a game to him, and he's winning. He's got his cars. He still retains his job. What does he have to care? It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and he's eating good. Now, is it the right thing to do? Of course it's not. Sorry, I keep opening and closing the window. But this would be a completely different situation if the final shape had actually failed. Like, completely and totally. This would be a completely different story if Lightfall had failed. If Witch Queen had failed. Is that the name of the DLC? Whatever it's called. We are consumers. We talk with our wallets. And for the longest time, we have talked for too long. This guy doesn't have anything to worry about. He might not be working there forever, but we've given him enough time to go somewhere else, to be in charge of another project, and earn just that much more money. Even if it fails, they'll let him go, they'll pay him to leave, and he'll ride off into the sunset just like Bobby Kotick did with Blizzard. And we can be as mad as we want to about that. But at the end of the day, we are in part responsible for it. We funded this dude. The question is, are you going to fund him again? I have my bet set on probably not. This was probably his last freebie. But considering how much money he earned, what he was able to buy, how much money he might still have left over, he doesn't have anything to worry about. It's these people who do. Now I'm going to say something really cruel and insensitive sounding, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I mean it with the best of intentions. If she had gotten fired, let's see. Let me just check the date on something. If she had gotten fired back in, say Witch Queen, that was 2 expansions ago, February 22nd of 2022, I bet she would have been able to get a job with another studio somewhere, or just another job in general. I bet she wouldn't have had to work in such a stressful environment. I bet a lot of people in Bungie would be in a lot of different places. I bet Bungie probably still wouldn't be around. They wouldn't have gone on to get so much more money from so much more people. But hey, that's just a theory. Thanks for watching.